welcome back to another episode of Kings Korner, fueled by Supplement King Medicine Hat. Today I want to take a different avenue of like goals and direction and kind of talk about like the sports world of that side. I happen to have someone in my life that I'm very grateful to have, and I met her through the best way, through Supplement King. And she took the time today to come talk to us about how like your goals can change, but like who you are kind of doesn't stay the same, but like it just grows within you. So I would like to welcome my friend Makenna to the podcast. Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you so much for coming today.
Of course, I'm happy to be here.
I am too. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of bring it like give your past like a little breakdown. So you came here from the wonderful town of Oshawa, Ontario.
Yes, I
That's
did.
correct.
Yeah, the dirty schwa for some. Anybody who grew up in the GTA, that is Oshawa, Ontario. Yes, I spent, I guess I would have been 21 years of my life in Ontario. I played hockey for Durham West Lightning, which was in the Ontario Women's Hockey Association. I played junior, which is like intermediate AA now, I think. I went to Cornell University, and I recently graduated last May. I guess it's already been a year now.
It's already been a year.
Yeah, May of 2025, I graduated from Cornell University. I played hockey at Cornell for my first couple of years, and then I medically retired. And now I've been working before I go back to school.
All right, and I do want to talk about that. So medically retired.
Mm-hmm.
You not only like I would say your career of hockey was one that I definitely like love to hear about, not like the ending of it, but I did love it, just knowing that I could like talk to someone about it. But you were invited to the U18 Hockey Canada Women's in 2019, right?
Yes, that is correct.
Do my research.
Yeah, I can talk about that. So going and playing hockey in Ontario, we had Team Ontario camps, there's Team Alberta camps, there's Team Manitoba. Every province has a provincial camp, and then there's a certain group of girls that's selected for your national team camps. And so I was selected that summer. It was August 2019, and I flew out to Calgary. It was my first time ever out west, actually. I had never been out west before. The camp was from August 2nd to August 11th, which is pretty intensive. They kind of give you a preparation, and all the fitness testing that they do is standardized. So what you're doing in your provincial stuff, you're going to be doing in, the national team camp. I had to adjust to the altitude, actually, because I guess the air is thinner a little bit. But that camp, long story short, I made it to August 11th and I was cut, and I had to go home. And that camp was the first time that I had actually been cut. And I don't say that to be like, oh, I was a phenomenal hockey player and I had never faced, but like truly, I had never been given a reason of, hey, you're not good enough, you need to be better. And that was the first time where I had to, I had dealt with different adversities, but this was the first time in hockey that I thought, wow, like, I'm among the best of the best, and now I need to be better so I can be back with the best.
I mean, I will ask, like, how did you, like, what was your mindset going into that? Like, was there, like, a certain preparation that you did?
Truthfully, I was going through a lot. Like, in 2019, my mom was also diagnosed with leukemia, and so she had just gotten her stem cell transplant a week and a half prior to me flying out west. So when I was doing the camp, I remember I played really well against, I think it was Russia or some team from Europe. And I played really well against those girls. But then the girls that were on the other Team Canada teams, I was Team Canada blue, they were Team Canada white. When I played against them, I didn't play as physical. And I kind of knew that when it came to making the decision for cuts that I was ready to go home. As much as I wanted to be a part of the national program and I wanted to represent Team Canada, I knew that at that point in my life, it wasn't necessarily the best time for me. And I mean, it's an honor to be invited there. I think there was 14 defensemen, so I was one of 14 in Canada, which is pretty cool. But my mindset going in, I don't think I had the expectation of making the team, honestly. Like, I was thrilled to be there and excited, but midway through camp, I was like, I think I'm ready to go back home. But external factors, obviously. So
what would you say that you took from that experience, like going into like Cornell the next year, all that?
I think that it made me grow a lot as a player. I mean, it was me and my other teammate. We were both playing for Durham West Lightning Junior at the time, and I would say that the elements we brought to the ice after that were a lot different. Like we had a little extra pep in our step, and it was a good experience to be with those girls who were all super fast, all super skilled, all had the drive and the passion, and so it kind of shifted my game to the next level, and it brought that element of gameplay that was just like a little bit more aggressive. Like, I mean, I'm 6'1". I should have talked about that in my introduction too. I'm pretty big on the
Just
ice.
read off the elite prospects before we get into
Yeah,
this.
right. Oh yeah, but I'm pretty big on the ice, and so I think it was just me reinforcing that I can use my physical presence to my advantage, and then again, like being cut, it gave me that extra element to work harder and strive and push a little bit more and shoot 100 more pucks a day. I never really did, to be honest. If we're being transparent,
Did any of us?
right? If we're being transparent, but I think that it did help me in that way that being surrounded by those athletes was like, okay, I'm there, but how can I get myself to that next level? And I think that helped me transition into Cornell. But COVID happened actually, I guess, right after, which kind of interrupted things a little bit. So
Not only did COVID happen, but also your hips too.
yes. So my medical retirement from Cornell, I had 2 FAI hip surgeries, which I won't even say the name because I don't even think that I can pronounce it. Basically, I had torn labrums, I had cam hip impingements, and I needed both my hips operated on. And it was my freshman year. Towards the end, I started experiencing like a lot of pain. And I was like, doesn't feel like a pulled groin. Feels a little bit worse. But I thought, well, brush it off. Went to my trainer. She's like, you probably have hip impingements, but everybody does. Look at the men's team, the women's team. We all have impingements. Like, slap some painkillers on it, will be okay. I'm like, sure. Get my first MRI. They do contrast with dye, and they're like, hey, your labrum's torn, hip impingement confirmed. I'm like, okay. My trainer's like, let's do a cortisone injection. Like we want to start with least invasive, which I mean, I don't know how I feel about a needle going directly into your joint being non-invasive, but they have to try that before surgery, right? And the doctor goes to give me my needle, and he's like, he puts the ultrasound on my hip and he goes, you need surgery. And I'm like, okay. He's like, I'll give you this needle. It probably won't work, and you're going to have to get hip surgery. And I'm like, well, we have to try. So at this point I should touch on too that, transitioning out of COVID and going to Cornell, it was very difficult for me. I was dealing with my mom now being in remission, but still pretty immunocompromised. We just come out of a pandemic. I'm now, went from Oshawa, Ontario. Now I'm in Ithaca, New York. So 5-hour drive, but it's still substantial enough that, I was an only child. I was never away from home. So I had a lot of life factors. And then being a Division I athlete on top of an Ivy League student was a lot. And so I had a lot of depression and anxiety that I dealt with. And then when it got to the point of me needing my hips, it kind of felt like a break. And I never thought I would have said that. But at that point, my first hip felt like, now I can take a break from hockey. And
Weight off your shoulders.
exactly, almost, right? And I struggled to admit that at first, but genuinely, when I found out that I needed time off, I wasn't that upset about it. However, I touched on that I had 2 hip surgeries, not just one. So I had my first one in the summer between my freshman and sophomore year. And then my sophomore year, after the first semester, I had my second one. And at that point, I was like, okay, I want to get back on the ice. I had my distance from the ice. I think my relationship is rebuilt with hockey, and, I'm feeling better and I'm feeling ready to come back. And then they're like, well, you need another surgery. I'm like, great. And I walked out of that one pretty defeated.
Mm-hmm.
So then it was then that I started training in the spring, trying to come back. But I had to deal with, okay, what am I going to do next? Am I going to come back to hockey, or am I not going to?
What kind of battle was that like in your head? Like, because not only were you battling with that mental health issue, on top of all the family, all the hip surgery, like before the age of 22 at that point, was it not?
Yes. Yeah, it was.
What kind of like tools did you have did you have any tools to utilize to help you through that?
My therapist, shout out Erin. I love her, ride or die.
We appreciate her.
We do. honestly, if it wasn't for her, and I mean, I did take some medications. I was on a lot of painkillers and stuff too to try and pain management, but mental side of things, I had a really awesome therapist, but I did have a really good circle. Like, my relationship with hockey wasn't the best, but I did a lot of things that still allowed me to be within Cornell hockey.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would organize community things like Toys for Tots. I organized that. So that allowed me to be close to my teammates, even though I wasn't practicing and playing, but I still had an impact. And then actually, one of the women that was a mental health performance coach for my junior team, I gave her a shout and I was like, hey, I think I have to step away from hockey and I don't know who I am outside of being a hockey player.
Mm-hmm.
Like all I felt like was I was a hockey player. My mom would introduce me to people and they'd be like, oh, you're the hockey player, right? Like that's all I knew,
It's a unanimous thing, is it not, with parents?
Yeah,
Like,
right. And so you adopt that because you're like, wow, that's me. So
mm-hmm.
I reach out to my friend Monique and I'm like, and I'll always attribute her to this because this is the best thing she ever told me. So we're on the phone and she's like, I want you to create a pie chart of what you feel like your identity is right now. And I was like, okay, a hockey player, whole circle, right?
100%.
Exactly. 100% of my circle, hockey player. And she's like, now I want you to create, what would your ideal pie chart look like? Or, what are the other aspects of you that you might be forgetting about if you're not seeing it outside of hockey? Okay, well, how am I as a daughter? How am I as a friend? How do I show up as a teammate? My goals and ambitions. What do I want to be outside of hockey, right? Because I mean, even though hockey was coming to an end sooner than I would have liked, our sports days always have to come to an end at some point, right?
Mm-hmm.
So who did I want to be outside of my sport? What were my passions? What were my hobbies? And I created this pie chart, and then I was able to see, okay, my identity doesn't just lie within hockey. It's so much bigger than that. And I think that was one of the biggest things that helped me with that mindset and that transition of out of sport.
I will say, like, even the transition out of sport, you still, well, from what I saw, you still like were able to like be a part of Cornell hockey. Like even last year, you went with the girls as they went. Was it Frozen Four?
Yes, it was.
You went all the way there to cheer them on, and I was like, to have the strength to like do that was just something to be so proud of, because you're like, I may not be on like in my skates, but I'm still in it for them.
Mm-hmm. And that was definitely it, right? I mean, like, I haven't played hockey since I've stopped. I have skated.
Mm-hmm.
I can count on one hand the amount of times I've skated. And I think that's because I want to give myself the appropriate amount of time away from the sport before I step back into the sport. Whether that's coaching, whether that's playing in a beer league, whatever that looks like, I want to have a positive relationship again with it. And like you said, I was very involved with my teammates when I was going through my transition. And even when I wasn't on the team, I adopted the hockey mom. I had a sweater that said, in my hockey mom era.
Sure did.
Because that's what I felt like, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was ride or die for the girls. I wanted them to be successful. But the other hand of it was a little bit of jealousy, right? Because I'm so proud of them, but I see them win the Ivy League championship. I see them win the ECAC regular season. I see them win the ECAC championship. I see them go to the Frozen Four, right? Like that's the biggest tournament in NCAA Division I hockey. And a part of me, I'm on the plane, and a small part of me is like, I should have been there. That should be me. I'm still a part of it, but I'm not playing. I'm not on the team, right? It's different. But it's a balance. And it's again, like I'm grateful that I am allowed to be a part of it and support them and cheer them on and be involved. But there's a little part of my heart that's like, oh, I wish that was me. And that's like full transparency about it. Like I talk a lot about mental health and, the biggest supporter that I was, but I never talk about that part of me that was a little bit envious and a little bit jealous.
The battle that it took to like show up there. Like,
yeah,
I guess I'll like speak from like what you were telling me at that time, where
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I could never have that strength, because like I feel like if you would have told Makenna in maybe 2020, she would be like, nah.
yeah.
Am I like right to say that?
Yeah, probably. Because I mean, I would cry. Like there would be times where I would cry. I would
Mhm.
call my mom on the phone and I would cry. And I remember my first season, it was my junior year, so my first season officially off the team.
Mhm.
And their opening weekend versus Penn State. I have a whole bunch of friends on Penn State, obviously all my Cornell teammates, and I left the rink early and I cried, you know? And it's hard, but you're right that it took a lot of growth. And through the things that I went through, it helped me grow as a person to realize, hey, like I'm allowed to feel both of these feelings, simultaneously, and that's okay. And there's nothing that I have to be ashamed about because it doesn't make me a bad person for feeling a little bit jealous or a little bit envious.
Doesn't at all.
Because in an ideal world, I would have been a part of that, right? So
Wasn't for those hips, man.
I know. Yeah, me grabbing for my emotional support water bottle now.
We all gotta have one. I will say with those with the way that you overcame that, I also
Yeah.
want to transition into the new role that you kind of took on at that time too.
Yeah,
So the hidden opponent. You want to talk a little bit about that?
for sure. I would love to. This is probably one of the things that I'm most proud of, actually.
Me too.
I feel like I've done a lot of work with mental health because I struggled so much. I mean, I touched on it very briefly, however many minutes ago, but I struggled a lot with depression, and I had some pretty dark days at Cornell. And I wanted people to know, especially student athletes, that like it's okay not to be okay. I know everybody knows that saying, but genuinely, I think there's a lot of glamour surrounding being a Division I athlete. It's what you want to be. It's before professional athleticism, right? Like it's that step beforehand, and it's glamorized and it's sunshine and rainbows. But people don't talk about that. Even the best of the best still might struggle mentally, right? And so the hidden opponent comes in because I was taking a class my senior year, and it was community psychology, and we had to do a project at the end of the year. And it could have been a poem, it could have been a little podcast, actually. It was a whole bunch of different things, but basically you had to take kind of an issue and create a final project with it using community psychology, whatever it was. So I chose to do a poetic collage, which was basically my artwork, and then I created a poem. And it's posted on the Hidden Opponent. It's called When the Mask Slips.
It will be linked in the description below. I think everybody honestly needs to read it. I remember sobbing after I read that. And I texted you immediately. I was like, this is like so many people need to see it. Just the power
you.
behind those words. Or like, and I think at that time I was like struggling in Saskatoon with hockey. And I was like, yeah, like it just shows you that like you're not alone in that world.
Yeah, right. And I mean, like, it's, that's exactly what it is when the mask slips, right? We all wear a mask. And the collage part of it is supposed to be like the juxtaposition of the masks that we wear as an athlete, like the happy of like, the celebrations and the pride and the strength and all of those things. But then the other side of it, the fear and, how are people going to look at you? Because I remember when I stepped away from hockey, I was like, wow, everyone's going to look at me like I'm a quitter. Because how many people, tear their MCL, tear their ACL, break a bone, they come back, right? That takes a lot of courage. That takes a lot of strength. Don't get me wrong, right? I have many of people that I know who came back from those injuries, and I'm really proud of them for where they've come from and where they've gotten themselves to. But no one talks about the strength and the courage it takes to step away and how scary it is. I mean, I was like, wow, my teammates are going to look at me and be like, that's pathetic. She's quitting. She's just giving up. Tons of people have these hip surgeries and she's giving up. And the poetic collage kind of gave me an outlet to be like, it's okay. And my decision, and it validated my decision even more to be like, you know what? Mentally, physically, emotionally, this was the best decision for me. And that's why I wanted to post it, because it's scary to medically retire. It's scary to quit your sport. It's scary to even realize that you may not be quitting, but your sport is coming to an end, right? And those are all things that any athlete, like, yes, it's about hockey, but it could reach somebody on a field. It could reach somebody on a pitch. Like, that was kind of my goal behind it. And, if even one person read it and they were impacted by it, that's one more person that I have hopefully helped in some way.
I strongly think you succeeded in that.
Thank you.
Once again, it will be linked in the description below. But with that posting of the poem, you were also an ambassador for them too.
I was an ambassador for the Athlete Confidential.
Yes.
Yes.
Apologies.
No worries.
Can you walk me through what that kind of looked like, or looks like still?
Yeah, so the Athlete Confidential, it's kind of up in the works right now because the woman who actually created it, she stepped away, different career change, but she still is involved with it. But there's actually a new guy who took it over. His name's Will Bush. I don't even want to talk about him because I don't know all the wonderful things that he does. He's a campus captain for Hidden Opponent. He's incredible in the world of mental health and athletics. And I believe he's cross country, but again, don't quote me. But he's taking over the Athlete Confidential. But beforehand, Gabby, they put out a call being like, hey, we're looking for athlete ambassadors. And I was like, you know what? why not give it a shot? It was my senior year. I'm a year and a half out of being an athlete. I'm like, why not see if I can make an impact, even greater than what I have? Because the hidden opponent had posted, and I was like, this is great, but it's not enough. It's not as much of the impact that I wanted to be having. And so I reached out. It was an application process. I think they had about it was quite a few, a couple hundred maybe applicants, got us down to a group of 50, gave us an interview or an opportunity to create a video, an introduction video, basically saying, hey, who are you? What are you bringing to the table? Why is mental health important to you, right? And submitted my application, and they were like, hey, we want you to be a part of this. And so I've made a blog post. I wrote about my story, a little bit more transparency than I ever had before when I stepped away. So they created a blog about me from what I posted, and it talks more in detail about how I was feeling. And I mean, I will never talk poorly about Cornell and about my experience. Like, that was my experience, and not everybody's is going to be that way. Unfortunate, it was the way it was. But I mean, I made it at the end. Like, what my experience turned into was because I worked to make it that way, right? Like, I could have stayed depressed and been like, well, I'm not an athlete anymore. There's nothing else going for me. But I worked to turn that around, and I worked to turn Cornell into a positive experience instead of a negative one. And I talk about that in the blog. And so we're in the works with what we're going to be doing next, but I still am an athlete ambassador for them. It's just like things are hanging a little low right now because we're waiting to see, okay, what are the next steps as Will's taking over from Gabby. There's a little bit of transition with the owner, and then we'll go from there. And I'm assuming pushing out content, still talking about it, because I mean, it's something that you can't talk about enough, truly.
You really can't. So you are from Oshawa, Ontario, and you now live in the beautiful city of Medicine Hat. What was that? Also, you were still going to school when you moved to Medicine Hat. So can we talk about distance with that too, like, and how that move went?
Yeah. I remember when my dad, it's funny because the reason why we moved is because my dad got a job out here, and my mom was on long-term disability and then ultimately retired. And so it was my dad's decision to move out here because my dad was the only one working full-time. I was in university. I wasn't in high school anymore. I'm in my 20s. My parents were like, well, she's not a kid anymore. There's really nothing preventing us from moving cross country. And so my dad's like, comes home one day, and I remember it vividly. I was in the spare bedroom laying with the dogs. And he's like, well, kid, we're moving to Medicine Hat, Alberta. I said, where?
Put that on a map?
Yeah, talk about out west, and you're like, oh, Calgary, Banff, like, like Medicine Hat, what is that?
Such an Ontario thing of you to say.
Well, it's the truth. Talk about BC, I'm like, oh, Vancouver, Victoria, wonderful, right? I don't know what Medicine Hat is.
Hannah Montana when she gets off that jet.
Yeah, for real. And so we moved. It would have been, so my mom stayed in Ontario, actually. My dad actually moved, I don't know, you probably do know this, actually, that my dad moved in October of my sophomore year, but I hadn't had my second hip surgery yet. Yes. So my mom was like, we are not moving until you've had that. Like, I want you to be close to me. Because I also had the surgeries in Rochester, New York. So it was still only about 4 hours to home instead of having to fly on a plane post-hip surgery. That's probably not going to work well. So we moved in the summer going into my junior year, and my best friend, like childhood best friend, Lauren, drove my car with me. We drove cross country, got here, was here for 10 days. So I had no idea what to make of it because I dropped my stuff off, turned back around, went back to New York. And my parents immediately loved it. I was like, that's great, but I don't know anybody here. Like, okay. I come home for winter break, very isolated, don't know anyone, doing things with my parents. I celebrated New Year's that year with my parents in the Mad Hatter Comedy Club.
Oh, yes.
Because I didn't know anybody, right? And that breaks into how we met the following summer.
Oh, I got to shout out Supplement King for that one, too.
Yes, you do.
So at that time, I was still playing Rattlers hockey, and your dad had come in, and I'm also going to talk to you about supplements, too. But your dad had come in, and he was like, hey, saw you on the news talking about hockey. And I was like, yes. And he was like, my daughter plays hockey. And I was like, great. Like, she's also moving here. We're new to the city. Can you be her friend? And I was like, yeah, sure, absolutely. So I think like the next day it happened that I went to the Mavericks game, our favorite place to go now. But I sat down and I think I looked over to my left and your dad was right there. He was like, "Hey, how's it going?" I was like, "Hello." And he was like, "This is my daughter. You guys are friends now." And I was like,
Yep.
"Works for me."
Basically.
And it's been great since that day.
Yeah, it is really funny. It's actually how my dad, met me my closest friends here. So it's by being like, hey, can you be friends with my kid?
So grateful for Ray for doing that, man.
Yeah.
But also, I guess we're transitioning into I want to say the next chapter. We're going to say the next chapter of how your life is going.
Yeah.
What's the story saying now?
I'm a cat mom. I go to the gym a lot. And I work all the time. I love it though. I work at one of the retirement homes here, and it's probably the reason why I found my niche in psychology. I didn't mention, but I am a psychology grad, and I'm going to school for my master's of education in counseling. So my end goal would be to become a psychologist, but I didn't really know, okay, what do I want to do, right? Like I've worked with kids. I know I'm good with kids. I work with adults and I'm like, okay, like, yeah, I'm good at that too, but I never really loved it until I started working at the retirement home and working with people who are, in some of them, they're in their last year of life. Others, they've got still a decade, but working with geriatrics and kind of realizing like, wow, like I really vibe with these people, and I make such a difference. And on some of our units, and I'm like, these people have such a special place in my heart. This is who I want to help. Because I think there's such a generation that people overlook them because they're like, well, they've lived their whole life. They must have it figured out. Well, this is everybody's first time living. And, we might help the families when they're going through that transition, but what about the person actually going through it, right? And so now life is looking like I get up early, 4:30 in the morning. I typically go to the gym very early. That's why I'm always in buying protein powder and supplements and creatine and all that, because I do go to the gym, this like pretty much every day. And that's something that probably being a high-level athlete, I will never let go of because it gives me some purpose, I guess.
Exactly. And I do want to ask with that, how did your, so when you stepped away from hockey, I know that, athletes leaving their sport, I feel like the transition from, training for that, having that purpose of, I'm training to, be faster on the ice, to have a harder shot. How did that transition work from going to the gym for that purpose, going to the gym just to, be there and work out for yourself?
I got a personal trainer. That's actually what I did to help me transition, because I stepped into a gym and I was like, okay, so I have no idea how not to do a silly little workout, because as you know, you'll be doing different stuff for plyometrics and things like that, and speed and power,
the stairs at a good old public gym, and
right? And you're doing this crazy workout with bands and the hamstring activator where you're with your and I'm like, okay, well, what do I do now? So I actually got a personal trainer. That is how I transitioned into figuring out, okay, how do I work out for myself? And originally, because being an athlete, like you said, you want to work on something, you want to become something, you want to get better. I was like, well, if I'm just going to the gym commercially, do I want to do a physique competition? Do I want to? And then I was like,
finding
what?
a new role in the gym, I feel
exactly
is the go-to thing.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, well, do I want to be a bodybuilder? And then I was like, well, I don't think so. I don't think that's what's for me. Just for my mental health and well-being, I was like, okay, I want to have a relationship with something that's, physical activity, that it's not oh my gosh, my life depends on this thing, which is why I stepped with the personal trainer, and it helped me kind of be like, okay, well, I can do this. And I mean, a lot of it too was my hips. If I don't go to the gym consistently, my hips do bug me. That'll probably be the way for the rest of my life. And so most of the time I go to the gym just to move, just to be able to function day to day without being in pain. And I don't think I would ever take it to a stage level or competition or anything like that, because I have a very good relationship with the gym now, that it's I can go, I get my lift in, and it sets the tone for the day. And I saw a thing, it's follow the plan, not the mood. I will follow the plan even if I'm not in the mood, and then it'll put me in the mood. So
oh my god, I stuttered. Just what do you say, you changed your goal? I guess you would say that your mindset changed from just this is what's going to make me happy, to not what's going to make my coaches or my team happy.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Because when you're, well, and I mean, like the gym can be very individual. And I mean, I guess isolating to some degree if you don't
Mm-hmm.
have people there that you know. And like, um, I think being that it's very individual, it does shift that team mindset because I'm obviously you're used to having like if you perform badly, that's affecting your team, right? Like, I'm on defense and I have a puck going off of me or I make a bad pass and then suddenly it's turned around and that's my fault, but they've scored, but that's my fault and now it's affecting my team. Whereas doing things for myself, it's like, okay, well, like if I don't go to the gym, like that's my personal choice. Like that'll affect me, but
Mm-hmm.
only me. It won't affect the other people that are around me.
And there's a new power in that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Which also I'll be like, I'll kick myself a little bit and I'm like, get up. Stop being lazy. Just get out of bed. 4:30 comes fast and it comes
Oh,
early,
it does,
but
man.
I always know I go to the gym, even if it's 30 minutes, I'm walking out feeling 10 times better.
Mm-hmm. Just the little things that matter that turn into the big things.
Truly.
Speaking of more big things,
Mm-hmm.
you were about to hop on a plane and go back to school soon.
Mm-hmm.
You went University of New Brunswick.
Yes.
You want to talk about that?
University of New Brunswick. I'm moving across country again.
You just love it over there.
I just love moving across country. Well, it's funny. I didn't apply to any schools in Ontario because I thought, talking about growth and growing as a person, I'm not the same person that I was when I lived in Ontario, and that was only 3 years ago. But I think that there's a lot that can happen between the ages of 21 and 24, and at least for me, I guess. But I applied to schools on the West Coast and the East Coast, and I actually didn't get into any schools on the West Coast. And New Brunswick was actually one of my last choices because I was like, I've heard good things about the East Coast, but is that really where I want to be? And it was the only place I got accepted. And I thought, well, if this is not the universe saying, get over there, girl. And so I flew out there a couple of weeks ago and just to, get a feel for it, to tour the space, to tour my apartment and things like that. And I'm really looking forward to it now, actually. And I assume most of my routine will stay the same. I'm even looking for a retirement home to work out there because I just truly love them all so much that it's not something I want to leave behind. But, I've started building a life in Medicine Hat and now I'm leaving it and going to Fredericton, but
Still gonna be here for you, man.
I know. And that, you know what? That's exactly what FaceTime's for. Text message. I'll be sending vlogs on Snap. I'll use Snapchat till the day I die. I will be vlogging till my death. So there's ways we can connect, and that's the beautiful thing about it. And I have to remember too that like, even though I've began to build a foundation, like those people aren't gonna leave. They're still gonna be in my circle. It's just gonna be that we're separated by 41 hours of driving. That's it.
That's all. But I
Exactly.
think I even told you, I was like, what's meant for you is gonna like come to you.
Yeah. Yeah. So heavy on that. And, like, again, like one door closes, another opens. And I think that's been really my whole life. Like, I'll be like, oh, like hockey, that door's closing. Why is that happening to me? Well, then look at all the other things that opened because of it and happened because of it.
Look what's happening now.
Exactly.
You can't skip to the end of the book. You gotta read through the full thing, man.
For sure.
Now there is one question I do want to ask you.
Okay.
If you were to like go back in time and change anything, or tell your younger self to do something, or to like just maybe change the outcome, what would you do that? Do that? Would you change anything?
Honestly, I don't think so. I mean, truly the relationship that I developed with hockey when it was coming to an end wasn't a pretty one. And it was kind of a beautiful disaster, me having to step away from my sport because I was like, okay, well, now I can focus on me. And having to step away from my sport, it was the first time in my life that I actually focused on me. And I was like, I'm choosing what I want. Because growing up, like my dad made me play hockey until I was like 8. And then he was like, okay, well, hopefully she's good enough and she likes it enough. She'll want to keep playing. And then I knew I had the skill. And so I kept playing and playing. And I mean, I would have moments of loving hockey and the drive and the passion, but I also knew I had the skill. So I never ever gave it up. But when it came to the end, it was, sad, but also bittersweet because I think that I was ready to move on with it, but I wasn't ready to accept having to move on unless it was actually shoved into my face, like injury. And it was because of that I was like, oh, it's time to focus on me. And I think that I wouldn't be half the person I was if it wasn't for what I went through. And so I wouldn't change anything. Because, I mean, yeah, I dealt with some things, but it turned me into who I am today. And, I learned so much and I grew so much that even though it was hard and it was really hard in the moment at times, I wouldn't change anything.
If you were to sit up in a room full of student athletes that are secretly going through the same thing, but like no one knew that. If you were to just tell them a few things, what would you tell them to like help them out?
Be honest with yourself. I mean, it's easy to lean into what your teammates would want from you, what your coaches would want from you, but kind of taking a second to maybe weigh out the pros and cons. Take a second, take a breath, realizing like you're so much more than your sport, because it's so easy to be lost in that. Again, identity, right? And I think just telling them you'll get through it. How you choose to get through it, obviously that's what you do, but there are people in your circle. And even if you make a decision like stepping away, you're probably going to be surprised by how many people don't judge you and they actually respect you for your choice. And that's something I had to realize, obviously, after I made that decision. But I think that I would just tell them to, give themselves grace, take a breath, be honest with yourself, but also recognize that you're not going through it alone, even though it feels incredibly isolating.
Just because you think that like this is the end of your sport doesn't mean it's the end of like you, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, like that, my strength coach told me, he was like, well, kid, we all have to stop playing at some point. Yours just came a little sooner. He's right. We all have to prepare for that retirement at some point.
It's about what you do with it.
Yeah.
And I think
how you overcome it.
You've made such a difference in so many people's lives.
Thank you.
I hope that more people get to hear this, and I'm very excited for what you have going on next in whatever chapter it writes. And thank you so much for coming to Kings Korner. And with that, I will see you guys next time.